Hello and welcome everyone. And as you all know that we were discussing on the basic industrial safety as per Indian construction industry, and we started with a lot of elements. So last time we finished off PPE. I know some topics are very boring and very much people are very much aware of it, but still some parts of it are required. I always try and talk of things that are being not talked of, rather not they are not being discussed for. So that's the reason why all these things come into light, and that is the reason why I'm posting. These are free videos, like these are part and parcel of the course, that the major course that is on National Industrial Safety Program. So this is part of the videos that you see here, now today we are going to start element 5, that is on industrial hygiene and occupational health. These are part of national uh, basic industrial safety program. So these are two courses that we develop. We develop one international course and one national based course. So now these courses basically are corely focusing on the industrial safety aspects of as per the Indian factory rules, factories act, basic whatever the infrastructure is available in India. So these are basically looking into it, but more or less all the elements are covered internationally as well. So there are many common things there. So first and foremost thing is, let us try and understand what is this element. So industrial hygiene and occupational health. Industrial hygiene and occupational health, when it comes, this is a very new branch. So industrial hygiene, what first you need to understand what is industrial hygiene and occupational health, and then we'll move forward to other things also in it. But today, what element we are going to discuss, this is only the basic part of it. So what is important here is to understand what this branch actually deals in with, and why it is so important, and how it has slowly and gradually gaining importance when it comes to industrial safety practices. So element 5, industrial hygiene and occupational health. First, let's understand that what we cover in this in the entire course, what we cover, and then we will be only taking the first element. So what we cover in industrial hygiene and occupational health is, the first part is industrial hygiene and occupational health and overview. Then comes occupational exposure limits. Then comes toxicology. Then comes workplace monitoring. And finally, statutory provisions related to industrial hygiene. So this overall covers all the aspects of industrial hygiene, wherein it became so much important is to being discussed in each and every individual element. So today we will be discussing on industrial hygiene and occupational health and overview. So let us start with this particular chapter or this particular element. So first, before starting industrial hygiene, we must know that what is industrial hygiene and occupational health. So when it comes to industrial hygiene and occupational health, and when we talk of an overview part of it, first we must understand that this branch has two parts to it. Industrial hygienist, there is a person involved. So who is involved? An industrial hygienist is involved. So hygienist basically analyzes, identifies, measures workplace hazard, to stresses that can cause sickness, impaired health, or significant discomfort in workers through chemical, physical, ergonomic, or biological exposure. Now, there are two roles of industrial hygienist, and those are to spot the condition and to help eliminate or control them through appropriate measures. So there are these two roles of industrial hygiene. First is to identify, that is spot those conditions, and second is to eliminate them. Now how he does it? He does it in a very systematic manner. So when it comes to industrial hygiene and occupational health, so this person is involved. So there is an individual who has a duty. Now this duty specifically prescribes what? So this duty prescribes to a set of a cycle of an appropriate approach, the correct approach. So what is the approach all about? So the approach starts with, in occupational hygiene, the approach starts with anticipation. So what is anticipation? This involves identifying potential hazards in workplace before they are introduced. So what they do is they anticipate. Okay, let us see, you are going to do this. Okay, so this can happen. Yes. So that is what anticipation is all about. Then comes the recognition. So how he recognizes? This involves identifying the potential hazard that a chemical, physical or biological agent or an adverse ergonomic situation poses to health. So before even the operation starts, or even if the operation has started, so we must anticipate, we must recognize things first, right? Then comes the evaluation part. So when we have anticipated certain things, we have recognized certain things, then what we do? We need to evaluate. So how evaluation happen? Evaluation of an extent of exposure to the chemical hazard, physical or biological agent, that is, or any adverse, ergonomical situation in a workplace. This often involves measurement of personal exposure of a worker to a hazard or an agent in the workplace, particularly at the relevant interface between the environment and body, that is breathing zone, hearing zone, and assessment of data in terms of recommended occupational exposure limits, that is OELs, where such criteria exist. Now you have to understand, this is a very, evaluation part is a very simple. How an industrial hygienist identifies it? He identifies is, there are two zones. Breathing zone, that is near your face. Hearing zone, from where you hear from your ears. So hearing zone is there. So first and foremost thing is, there are two things that they identify. Why breathing zone? Because breathing zone ultimately directly affects your health. Whatever you inhale is going inside your breath, and when you breathe out, so this is a procedure. So breathing is one zone which is very critical for them, that whether any person is getting occupational exposure or not. So that comes under occupational exposure limits. And similarly, going to hearing also, it's the same. Now, why this is identified? Because these are critical control requirements. These are prevention for the, why we do it? We do it for the prevention sake. So prevention is required. Why? Because we need every person or every individual coming to our premises safe. So these are the prevention measures. So what we need to do is, if it is a chemical area, we need to define what will be the exposure level, that is the OEL limits. If it is a mechanical unit, what will be the hearing part of it, how much noise is visible. Then when it comes to overall, if it is on a high heat area, so heat exposure. So anything that is affecting us physically, or through whatever is going inside us. So this comes under the evaluation and prevention part. Now coming to the control. Now when it comes to control of the chemical, physical or biological agent. So these are the three different parts: chemical, physical and biological agents, or adverse ergonomical situation by procedural, engineering or other means, that defines under the hierarchy, where evaluation indicates that this is necessary. So everything is on a proven fact. So whenever we evaluate anything, we evaluate for making some preventions, and then we put on the controls. And these controls can be procedural, these controls can be engineering based, these controls can be all indicating whatever is necessary to ensure that the person working or the individual working in that premises is not affected chemically, physically, biologically or ergonomically. So this involves into controls. Now you must understand that what is occupational health. So we have understood up to anticipation, recognition, evaluation, preventions and controls. But what is occupational health? Now, occupational health primarily deals in with all aspects of health and safety in the workplace and has a strong focus on primary prevention of hazards. The health of worker has several determinants including risk factors at workplace leading to many occupational diseases, accidents, mucoskeletal diseases, respiratory diseases, hearing loss, circulatory diseases, stress related disorders and communicable diseases and others. Now, environment or any employment of a working condition in the formal or informal economy embraces other important determinants including working hours, salary, workplace, policies concerning maternity leaves, health promotions and protection provisions. So this is what is included as part of occupational health. So there is a difference between occupational health and industrial hygiene. So occupational health deals in with all these factors, see, determining the risk, this and that, all that is included in occupational health. But who has to do it? So this, there is an individual, and this is the reason why this branch was introduced as industrial hygiene. So how it came to existence, let us try and understand some history of it. Because when we are discussing overview, so we must touch some points of history as well. So when we try and touch the historical points, let us see. Okay, so historical highlights. So imagine this goes way back in 370 BC, where Hippocrates identified lead poisoning in miners and metallurgists. Why? A lot of activities were going on, mining activities. So from there, oh, this was the exposure that has been identified. So we identified that yes, lead is poisonous to the miners because it was causing harm to the human life. So that was identified. Then in 1700 AD, Ramsini, father of occupational medicine, published Disease of Workers and introduced the question of what trade are you? So there was this, it was publicized that it came to highlight that yes, it is required to come out. Then came in 1900 AD, Dr. Alice Hamilton investigated dangerous occupations. First women faculty member of Harvard University wrote Exploring the Dangers. So these are books. So they have written some very good literatures are available related to the history and how this industrial hygiene branch came into existence. In 1914, IPSHS organized Division of Industrial Hygiene and Sanitization, American Public Health Association. So what they did, they formalized it. So everybody was doing their bits and pieces of part. So there was a requirement to club it together. So in 1914, the Industrial Hygiene and Sanitation, that is American Public Health Association organization, organized Industrial Hygiene section. Now in 1922, so from there it all started to come together. The Harvard University established Industrial Hygiene degree program. So they started educating people that first we must educate people before formalizing, only then people will come to know. Then came in 1939 AIHA, that is American Academy of Industrial Hygiene. Now this was organized. Now then came ACGIH, that is American Conference of Governmental Industrial Hygienists. They prepared the first list of maximum allowable concentration for chemical exposure in industry. So ACGIH, they started listing down. Okay, let us list the maximum allowable concentration. So this was limited. Why? Exposure cannot be in abundance. So there was a requirement of defining the specific limits. Now in 1960, American Board of Industrial Hygiene organized AIHA and ACGIH. They came in close coordination. So what they do, they organized this in a specific manner. They started writing the codes, practices, everything was starting in formalization manner. Now in 1970, IS Occupational Safety and Health Act was adopted. In 1981, Professional Code of Ethics adopted by US Industrial Hygiene Association. And rest is history. We all know it, how it is flourishing now. So this was the historical part of it. Now let us try and understand some of the facts that are actually related to the practicality and aspects of industrial hygiene. So we will be discussing on job hazards, and we'll be limiting it to a very crisp and brief aspects of it. So let us understand what are job hazards. To be effective in recognizing and evaluating on the job hazards and recommending controls, industrial hygienists must be familiar with the hazards characteristics. Now, potential hazards can be included. What are the potential hazards? That can include air contaminants, chemicals, biological, physical, and ergonomic hazards. So these are the things that an industrial hygienist identifies. Now, when we say that air contaminants, so what are air contaminants? So these are commonly classified as either particulate of or gases and vapor contaminants. The most common particulate contaminants include dust, fumes, mist, aerosols, and fibers. Now, dust are solid particles generated by, handling, crushing, grinding, colliding, exploding, and heating organic and inorganic materials such as rock, ore, metal, coal, wood, and grains. So all these things we are doing. Now what happens from this? Now fumes are formed when material from a volatilized solid condenses in cool air. So in most of the cases, solid particles resulting from the condensation reacts with the air to form oxides. Now the term mist is applied to liquid suspended in the atmosphere. Mist are generated by liquids considering from a vapor back to a liquid, or by liquid being dispersed by splashing or atomizing. Now you have to understand what are fumes, what is mist. So these are the two core differences. So fumes are formed by material with solid condensate in cool air. Now mist is formed by liquids. Then comes aerosols. So aerosols are also form of mist, characterized as by highly respirable minute liquid particles. Now fibers are solid particles whose length in several is several times greater than the diameter, such as asbestos. Gases are formless fluids that expands to occupy the space and enclosures in which they are present, are confined. So they are what we understand by this. So here we will try and how to make it much more simpler. See, the atomic and diatomic or molecular in nature as opposed to droplets or particles, which are made out of millions of atoms and molecules. So there are through evaporation, liquids change into vapor and mixes with the surrounding atmosphere. Now vapors are volatile and form a substance that are normally in a solid or liquid state in a room at room temperature and pressure. Now vapor are gases in that true form are atomic or molecular in nature. So the chemicals used or produced in an industrial operation, generally what does it do? So it dissipates in the air. So depending on the process, these are classified into few physical states. So these are classified. How they are classified, we will be discussing in a very crisp way. that how they are classified. So there is gases and vapors. So common examples are sulfur dioxide, carbon monoxide, hydrogen cyanide gases, and vapors of tribenzene, then xylene. So these are all gases and vapors. Now particulate matter are divided into few different elements: dust, fumes, mist, smoke. So dust, fumes, mist, and smoke. What are the categorization of this? So these are solid particles produced by grinding. So what is dust? These are solid particle produced by grinding, crushing, drilling, and blasting operations and are suspended in the air. The size of the particles are predominantly higher than zero point 0.2 microns. Now what are fumes? So these are solid particles generated by condensation, generally after volatilization from melted substances and often accompanied by oxidization. The particle size varies from zero point 0.2 to 1 microns. Common examples are lead and zinc fumes. Now what are mist? So dispersion of liquid particles in air. These are generally formed by condensation of water vapor and submicroscopic particles or by atomization of liquid. Now mist of sulfuric acid is an example of dispersion. What happens? Everybody is aware of it. It forms the mist. Now what are smoke? So small gas borne particles, diameter less than 0.3 microns, resulting from incomplete combustion and consisting of predominantly of carbonucleus material are grouped in this category. So when it comes to industrial hygiene branch, they can classify very easily into these particulate matters, whether it is dust, fume, mist or smoke. So it has been classified into these four categories. Now apart from these, air contaminants may be present in the form of smog, fog, which are not usually encountered in the industrial environment. But we often hear when cold is there, so we see and we hear about it in news and all. Correct. Now coming to chemical hazard. So everybody is aware of chemical hazards. Harmful chemical compounds are present in the chemical industry. So what happens? We do the toxic effect of these chemicals are affecting our health. How it affects? We breathe through it. We come in direct contact with skin and during eating and drinking. So these processes have specific names. So how chemical hazards come in contact with us? Inhalation, breathing, absorption through skin, and ingestion through eating and drinking. So these are the things how chemicals enter our body. How to safeguard it? To safeguard it, we must refer to the MSDS and understand the potential hazards of the chemical and then move forward. Now, when it comes to industrial hygiene branch, see, because we are discussing in brief here, so I'll not be going in much of the details, but yes, chemicals are primarily divided into 6 or categories. That is, they are irritants, they are expectorant, and chemicals causing lung damages, then systematics and central nervous system toxic and carcinogen mutants. So these are different categories that are being studied in detailed branches of industrial hygiene. Now I'll just give you a quick brief. Irritants, basically they irritate your nose, eyes, mucous membrane. So you have a sore throat, you have eye burning, you have nose and your nose gets sensitive. So all that are irritants. Now asphyxiants are basically things that causes you choking. So they are basically exposures which affects your health at a greater level. So they make the area oxygen deficit. So when oxygen is not present, so you'll get common poisoning kind of effects. So that is why they are harmful. Then there are a lot of occupational lung disorder associated to these exposures. Then systematic poisoning is there, lead, we are aware. Then CNS toxicants will be there. Then coming to the biological hazard. So see, I am not discussing here in detail about all this, but yes, these are part and parcel of the course. But now we will be talking about the biological hazards. So these includes bacteria and viruses, fungi, living organisms that can cause chronic infections by entering the body either directly or through breaks in the skin. Now occupants can deal with plants, animals, food, processing. Biological hazards are present everywhere. Correct. So biological hazards primarily, like I said, to understand all these effects, that how chemicals are affecting our body or how they are entering our body, you have to first understand the procedures. So that we will be taking at a later stage, and it is already defined in the detailed course. But yes, so how it enters our body, so all our entry points, through eyes, through nose, through hands, through skin, everywhere. So anything and everything entering our body through any means of entry is harmful for us if is in not specific quantums or is in a greater potential quantities. So this is what is the industrial hygienist does. They analyze it. Now coming to the physical hazard. So physical hazard can be n number: electromagnetic, radiation, noise, vibration, illumination, heat stress. These are all physical part of it. So how they affect it, everybody is aware that how physical hazards are causing ill effects on us. Now coming to the final point, and that is the overall. I think we have discussed. We have to discuss only the ergonomic part now. So how ergonomic parts affect us? So ergonomic parts affect us with a repeated movement. So when we have any operation that involves bodily physical strength, where a person is involved with body strength and has to do repeated movements, may it be hand movements, upper body movement, lower body movement, any movement. So this primarily, when things, again, it is part of physical, but it is separated from physical because it only involves manual handling of material, and that's a specific branch where manually how we are taking care of our body, how we are actually functioning is important. So what we are doing repeated movements. We are lifting certain things. We are moving in a place. We are sitting in a place. So all that, any work premises, any workplace which involves human and has a repeated movement comes under the branch of ergonomics. So they primarily analyze ergonomic motion, how you are moving around, how you are working. If that is causing strain, pains to your physical body, then it's definitely harmful. But sometimes we don't realize, but we often say that, oh, we have a constant headache, we have a constant leg pain. So all this is being analyzed by hygienists, and they identify what part of your body is getting affected by it, and then there are engineering solutions to it. So you must have, nowadays we all hear and we are all becoming aware that there are ergonomic chairs available, ergonomic workstations are available. So there is a reason why all these things are being designed. So they are primarily focusing on the comfort of human being, and they are being now provided. Correct. So I hope if you have liked this video by now, you have subscribed us, you have shared this video, and you have liked it, and keep liking and sharing. We'll get back to you soon. Thank you.